everyone to the Project WiCCED seminar series. This is the second of many to come on the work that's happening through Project WiCCED. That's the water and the changing coastal environment in Delaware. It's the Track 1 project within the state of Delaware's EBSCOR program, the National Science Foundation, and also supported through the state of Delaware. We are happy to get together in this virtual manner to talk about not only the research and teaching and educational opportunities that are happening within Project WiCCED, but also to deal with the really timely issues that are facing our institutions. As many of you know, Project WiCCED and the EBSCOR coalition in the state of Delaware is comprised of Wesley College, Delaware State University, Del Tech, and the University of Delaware. And so we work together closely to pursue a variety of different topics, in this case related to coastal water challenges and bringing forth the next generation of scholars and professionals with a strong STEM education background. And what many people might not know, but they should know, is Malcolm D'Souza and his incredible work and dedication to EBSCOR for many years. And Malcolm, I'll give you you should tell us exactly how many years. It's been longer than I've been around, but what has always been true is Malcolm's commitment to EBSCOR, to the state of Delaware, and probably his heart always is with the students of Wesley College. And I've never met a student who doesn't feel that Malcolm is completely behind them and doing what he needs to do to lift them up, educate them, and grow as people and scholars. And now we are facing a challenge of that none of us have anticipated going into, is how do we have those connections with our students and do this in a climate of COVID-19, where being close to people is difficult, where the financial stresses and strains on our institutions have never been higher, and how do we still make that meaningful connection to students and to make that next generational transfer happen. So it is really an honor to have Malcolm come and talk. As many people know, he's also not only the Wesley institutional lead with the project, but also a co-principal investigator, given his commitment to science as well as the students. So it's my pleasure to introduce Malcolm D'Souza today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kent, and thanks to everyone that's on the call. And what Kent didn't mention, and I'm sure my students will mention, but at Wesley, the students feel that I'm the kindest teacher on campus because I teach the easiest drawing class called organic chemistry. But with today's talk, we are going to give you data about the impacts of COVID on this campus. And I suspect, if one takes the time to look at the other partner institutions' campuses, you'll see exactly the same results or very, very similar results. But before I go on, I just would like to acknowledge the sponsors of this program. So besides the Delaware EBSCOR and the WiCCED program, the program's also sponsored through the Delaware INBRE program. So at Wesley, students have the opportunity to do research, directed research with a mentor, faculty member, within several avenues. One is, there are several in-course activities. So most of our STEM courses are project-based. So students do research within those courses. But students could also register for a directed research class. Or in the summer, Delaware EBSCOR, Delaware INBRE sponsors the summer internships program. And this is the product of such a program. One of the students that was enrolled in this particular project was Lindsay Kohanagi, who's a biological chemistry sophomore, and she's going to introduce the talk today. So Lindsay.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Lindsay Kohanagi, and I'm a sophomore biochemistry student from Wesley College. This was my first summer of my college career, and I was thrilled to be offered an internship at the University of Maine. However, this got postponed to the summer of 2021 due to the pandemic. However, Dr. D'Souza and Project WiCCED was able to support me this summer, allowing me to continue my research skills by using this project. This summer, I worked with two other students, Katie Fry and Andrew Shepard, to examine the effect the pandemic had on both the faculty and the students at Wesley College. Personally, my role was to design and analyze the student surveys by utilizing Google Forms. To obtain quality answers, we decided to go with a staggered approach of 6 short topical surveys lasting about 5 minutes each that were sent weekly. In week 1, we geared the questions towards access to technology and appropriate learning environment. In week 2, the questions looked at impact to household income and job loss. And in week 3, the survey had questions that attempted to understand how students living both on and off campus at the beginning of the semester and how they felt towards their sense of community as a college during the transition to remote. In week 4, we designed questions to see if the pandemic had an effect on degree completion and career interests. In week 5, the questions to how laboratory courses were handled and received, as well as questions that inquired educational inconsistencies related to video conferencing platforms and techniques. Week 6 was probably the most extensive survey, and this was because we looked at mental health from a variety of different issues. This included questions related to motivation, fear, and the possibility of declining quality of life with regard to access to food, healthcare, and shelter. In total, we reached out to 68 students at Lindsay College through email, text message, telephone calls, and even FaceTime, and even social media such as Instagram and Snapchat. We had an average response rate of over 6 of the 6 surveys of 63%, and we gained valuable results that we're able to use in preparation for the fall of 2020 semester. Although I would love to share more information about the data and the results, but I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to turn over things to my mentor, Dr. D'Souza. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lindsay. So one thing, Lindsay, I should tell you about the slide, and this is the first time I looked at the slide on my screen. I am color challenged, and it's hard for me to read the words, so keep that in mind. So, but just remember that. But anyway, so a number of you must be wondering, if you looked at the initial slide, what is STEM URCATS? And the URCATS program is the Undergraduate Research Center for Analytics, Talent, and Success. And this program was put in place because, currently at Wesley, all STEM majors are involved in research. And most of these undergraduate research components are through sponsored projects. And, to keep a handle on this, we put in this center. So what are the types of research projects that are occurring? And they're listed out here. And this particular project, falls in STEM education essentially, and that's what we are going to talk about today. And like Ken said, how does this fall? How do all these projects fall within the overall WiCCED structure? If you remember the WiCCED house that you've seen a number of times, and you could see the foundation of the house, that's essentially where I see these sorts of STEM education projects falling under. But at Wesley, there are several projects that also fall within the various threats and solutions. So way back when, looking back at March, and this is what was happening in the US on March 11th, 2020. It seems like, several generations ago. And if one looked at the number of COVID cases, believe it or not, on March 11th, there were barely 1,250 COVID cases in all of the US. And if you take yourself back, approximately 7 months ago now, the University of Delaware, I think, was on an extended spring break, and so was Delaware State University and the Deltec Community College System. Wesley College had an earlier spring break during the first week of March, so we were actually in school on March 11th. So on March 12th, the president of the college sends a message and says, hey, don't worry, everything is under control. US has only about 1,250 or so cases, not to worry, don't panic, everything under control. We are not moving online yet. So that was March 12th, the evening of March 12th. Okay, March 13th was actually Friday the 13th. And this is a John Hopkins pictorial representation, and it may not be very clear on your computer, but if you look on the East Coast, the number of cases on that day increased significantly. So once, the number of cases started increasing significantly, and it's pretty obvious now looking back, it's because of the testing, started to increase and the results started rolling in. On the evening of March 13th, the president sent an email to the faculty and said, hey, guess what? We are moving online. And we are migrating online through the intranet system. And the intranet system is called WiCCED. It's a Jansenbury system, very similar to Blackboard or something comparable. I mean, not as good, but something comparable. Most of the STEM faculty at Wesley had never taught an online course before. And I'm sure, it's just the same on other campuses. And we just had a few, maybe about 8% of the STEM faculty. And we're talking about 23 faculty members, counting a number of full-time adjuncts. So, we just had a handful who had some experience. So there had to be some sort of training put into place. But in about 40, so this was Friday, March 13th. On Monday, we were going to do everything online. So faculty had about 48 hours to step up to the plate and, reinvent the wheel, and especially, lab science courses. So we had to act very fast. Why doing such research is important for us? Wesley's enrollment, if one looked at Wesley's enrollment for the past few years, for the past 5 or 6 years, this is the pictorial representation of that enrollment. Wesley College right now is private. It's a private institution. In order to function, we need about 1,500 or so students, undergraduates. So we are primarily an undergraduate institution. We need 1,500 or so students. In the past 3 years, the numbers were dropping in terms of enrollment. And this was going to have, so very early we saw that COVID was going to have a major impact on the institution. And when you have a major impact in terms of numbers of students, well, it's going to have a financial impact. And when Wesley reached out to the state earlier this year for, a few $1 million, like about $3 or $4 million, the state raised hell and said, hey, y'all are a private institution, church affiliated, and you guys are asking for money, right? So, we knew at once that this was going to be a problem for us. So that's why, we knew that the summer internship program was coming up. We did not know in March whether we could be, on campus or off campus, but we decided to do a study. And when Yolanda first asked me, for a project description, this is what I sent to her. And at the time, I said, hey, at least we'll have at least 2 undergraduates involved in the project. And by then, Lindsay got information from her main internship that it was going to be canceled and postponed to 2021. So she needed something to do too. So the 2 undergraduate students that are involved in this project are Lindsay Kohanagi, who you met earlier, and Andrew Shepard, who's also a sophomore in biological chemistry. We also had Katie Fry, who was a graduate student and completing her thesis, and she said, hey, I've completed my thesis, I need something to do. So we said, hey, join us. And listed out here are the nine essential research objectives that we were worried about, and to see, what was the impact once we transitioned to all online. We had absolutely no clue how it's going to influence our students or how it's going to impact their career goals. Most of the Wesley students, just to give you some background, the majority of the Wesley population is minority. So we are about 64 or 65% minority. Uh, a large majority of the Wesley population, almost close to 70%, comes from backgrounds that have a very high financial need. Actually, 96% of the Wesley undergraduate students, get Pell funding. So Pell Grant funding is for those with very, very low incomes. So we knew that this was going to affect them tremendously. And because of Project Wicked and the Delaware Embry program, we before we even knew about COVID, we had actually bought a lot of laptop computers for the students that the students could actually rent out. Um, so our goal was to see, did what, the programs that we put in place, did they work? And the programs for the faculty, the training that we provided for the faculty, did that work? And what happened to the labs? I mean, most of the experimental labs went online. We provided money through Project Wicked and through Delaware Embry to help with some lab simulations. Did those work? So our goal was to figure out, what exactly went through, and we did this through a bunch of surveys. Like Lindsay said, a total of 6 surveys to the students. There was one faculty survey, and the faculty were also interviewed by the students. And by the way, I have to say this, students that work with me, I usually let them loose, and I follow their lead. I mean, I'll correct them as they go along. But this was a completely a student run project. I mean, they came up. I got them to. I gave them the research objectives, but I got them to come up with the questions. They figured out Google Drive. I mean, I have no clue how to run Google Drive. I mean, Amy always complains, and on the other side, Embry complains about my knowledge of Google Drive. So hey, the students did all of the task out there. So kudos to the students. So this is what we found. So first of all, our goal was to track. Hey, most of the students, now once they went home, so all of the Wesley students were sent home on March. So that weekend, the weekend of March 13th, they were asked to leave campus. Through WiCCED and through EBSCOR, a few years ago, this would be on the prior round of EBSCOR, we put in a student support structure in place. And it's because of that student support structure, it's called Lantern, it's a case management system. We were able to identify there were 34 students actually that were found to be homeless. So they did not have a place to go home to. And they were provided a place on campus to stay. So besides those 34 students, all the rest of the Wesley students went home. So this is the data that we got. So the first thing was, hey, did you have access to your online access to your courses? So did you have a laptop? Did you have, Wi-Fi? Now, those students who did not own a laptop were allowed to borrow one from the college. In certain courses like GIS, which is a WiCCED-sponsored course, or the SAS programming course, those students were actually even allowed to use a workstation from the college. They were actually allowed to borrow a workstation because those computer courses include high-end software that requires a lot of memory space, and a laptop usually doesn't cut it. So they were allowed to take the workstation home. And you can see here from the survey, there were 47 respondents, And I think the survey was sent to about 68 students. By the way, prior to sending out the survey to the students, we did get IRB approval. So there were 47 responses, and 96% said, hey, yeah, I had online access. But a lot of the students found it quite difficult to adjust to this new learning style. And that was surprising to see, because you think that, with this generation, you'd think it would be easier, but because of their home life situation, they found it very, very difficult to adjust to this new learning style. And that, this was about 30% of the population. So this was quite um, an eye opener for us. We then looked at the financial impact, and this was very important for us because we realized that a number of our students are financially challenged. And the first question that was asked was, did someone in your family lose a job? And the answer was yes, for 44% of the respondents, which is very, very high. And if one looked at the income, prior to COVID, close to 40% of the students reported that their household income was $4,000 or less. Their household income, $4,000 or less prior to COVID. After COVID, guess what? That number went, above 60%. And that is a significant loss of income for these students. So with loss of income, we realize there's going to be added stress, right? And this is going to impact the future career goals of these students. We also wanted to figure out, how are the students trying to cope? And one group of students that we were very worried about were the graduating seniors. Katie Fry was one of the students that was involved in that group. And, Wesley is a close-knit community. A lot of students participate in graduation. I mean, graduation out here is the graduation event is a big event on campus. And, they missed their in-person graduation ceremony. 90% of the students that responded said, hey, I didn't like it at all. There was a virtual graduation, some participated, some didn't. But also those that were living on campus, felt that they greatly missed out by being sent home, because on campus through WiCCED and through the Delaware Inbay program, we created a lot of learning communities. And these communities, like the Canon Scholar program and so on, these communities, are communities where the students help each other be successful in their coursework. And we found that, not talking to each other, not interacting in person, students felt missed out. We then, tried to figure out is, hey, because of COVID, is your career goals going to change, or are you looking, for some other careers? And what we found interesting was that a lot of students actually said, hey, they're more interested now in data science. And data science, at Wesley, data science certification is available through an informatics program where the students are involved in GIS, SAS programming, and a computer programming course. So, so there has been a greater response to that sort of training. So data science was key, but students were also interested in the health sciences. And by health sciences, we mean in sort of a medical technology or lab science program. And a number of students said, hey, yeah, I'd be interested in that. I have greater interest. So that was important to say. We also wondered, now that all of the courses like organic chemistry and analytical and so on went online, these are usually hands-on courses, how did the students, feel? Did that help or hurt them? And when we asked the question, so prior to COVID, close to 90% said, hey, they really learned from their in-lab experience. And and then if you look at the data that is shown out here, you can see that 33% said, during COVID, the online experience, they didn't like it at all. And even anecdotal evidence suggests that the students didn't like, these case studies or these lab packets that were sent or these activities that were given. They missed out on them. And this semester we are on campus, and this semester we are finding that the skill sets of the students, some skill sets that they would have learned in a hands-on lab experience are missing this semester. So that's something to think about. We also asked them, were there, any problems during these video conferencing calls? And most people did not have any problems. I mean, there were just minor issues, and most of the issues turned out to be mostly connection problems or some background noise. When we looked at motivation, prior to COVID, 50% of the students said, they were very motivated in reaching their career goals. But after COVID, I mean, this took a hit. Motivation took a hit, and I suspect, being away from the learning communities, did not help at all. The students were just lost. And we found that in the online classes when we talked to the faculty members, and so on. So motivation dropped significantly. And when we asked them about their mental health, female students said they were more greatly affected than the male students. But I suspect, male students, when you ask them about mental health, usually they're just like me. I mean, they'll just put it off probably. But I suspect it affected both cases. But the females, female students did bring that up a lot in comparison to the male students. And you see that in this question too. And female students did mention it quite often. Now, when we talk to the faculty members, I mean, most of the courses, at least most of the, the major respondents from the faculty members were from math, biology, and chemistry. I mean, these are the three major courses on campus. And then we also have Stephanie, who teaches the environmental science courses. We also have physics courses, but I'm not sure if the physics people responded or not. But math, biology, and chemistry were the major respondents to these sort of questions. And I know Stephanie responded too, so she's included too. Now, initially, if you remember, the president suggesting that we'd use the intranet system for these online courses. Well, faculty took it upon themselves, and they actually came to WiCCED, and through WiCCED we provided Zoom. And Microsoft Teams was already provided by the college. So faculty just began to do things, take on their own initiative and took the lead on this. There was faculty training provided again through a series of workshops. Faculty were provided training with WiCCED. So they used WiCCED mostly for asynchronous tasks, like issuing exams or completing assignments and so on, because you could do a timed process that way. But most of the time, faculty used either Zoom or Teams, Microsoft Teams. Surprisingly, faculty felt, these are STEM faculty, so they felt that, hey, there was enough time, I could figure this out. So, with whatever training was provided by the college, we figured it out. So there was enough time for the online instruction. This was a surprise to us. And this showed in the next question. They thought that the online training, provided, and we also provided those that did not have a very good laptop. We provided them laptops and devices for them to use. So, people were pretty pleased with that process. What were the most challenging? Well, faculty felt, that a lot of students, because again, I suspect because of a lack of motivation, a lot of students miss classes. But also because, a lot of Wesley students have family issues. We also found that students did not have a safe place to attend the class online. There was some attending just from where? Through their cars. They were sitting in their car and attending class. So there was, no space for the student to attend class in a safe environment. Most faculty agreed that now they become very comfortable teaching online. So that was a good thing to know. What were their concerns about returning to fall? The Wesley College president and the college cabinet decided that, hey, this semester we are in person. We are in person right now. I am sitting in my office, and that's why there's a mess around. You can see my environment. Um, and we are in person for the simple reason, we could not financially afford to run this semester online. Without in-person classes, we would actually have to close. But there were several issues. Faculty were worried prior to the semester, prior to the start of the semester. Hey, my health is of concern. I was worried. But so far, knock on wood, right now there was, we have kept the cases on campus, uh, amongst the students, I think the number was the highest number I think I saw was 9 cases at the most. And, that once the students realized they were quarantined and so on. But right now, there's just one case, as far as I know, of a student, having been exposed to COVID. So far, things are working well, and we are still continuing with online classes, and it's really, and I see it in my own class. Like I said, I teach organic chemistry, and this year I'm teaching organic too. I think teaching organic chemistry online is not an easy thing to do, and the in person. I think that especially in organic too. I think that they're doing much better than when we went online, and it's I think the in person class has a big impact. But just like, students struggle with work and home balance, so did faculty, especially faculty with young kids. We have Aaron Pachiniak and Stephanie Stotts, I know. Both of them have young kids, and, people struggle because it's hard to manage both the family and the online classes, and it seems it was more of an effort. So this is the group of students, through WiCCED, we sponsor the Success in STEM program. So the Success in STEM program is a program for incoming freshmen, as long as they live in the state of Delaware, and they could go to any of the colleges. They could go to University of Delaware, Deltech, Delaware State, or even go outside Delaware. But as long as they're a resident of Delaware, we run a 3-week program, 3-week summer program. It's normally a residential program, and these students photographed here were the 2019 cohort. And in this program, in 3 weeks, we teach them skills, to be successful in pre-calc, chemistry, and scientific writing. And this past summer, we had a virtual component of the Success in STEM program, and there were about 10 students. But again, these are learning communities. And what we found is that the students, from these learning communities who existed in these learning communities, they made these connections. They are the ones that survived the COVID transition. Wesley College, from spring to fall, our numbers got decimated. We were decimated. I told you, about 44% of the Wesley College survey respondents had a family member or where their household income dropped significantly. If their household income drops, guess what? Their college, attendance is going to drop. The STEM program was, essentially decimated. I mean, we lost about 35% of our students. 35% for us is a large number. But the students in these learning communities, Canon Scholar Program, the Success and STEM program, these students came back. Because again, they have connections. The connections were made. These strong connections were made. But what we found is this loss of academic progress affected the underserved population tremendously. And in the STEM areas, we lost unfortunately, a number of African American men because of, again, loss of household income. So this has affected that population significantly. We also found, like I said earlier, these learning communities, these practices that support students help them continue. They are still being helped, because the connections are already made. And then, thanks to WiCCED, thanks to the Delaware Embry program, the support for the faculty, with the technology and so on, that has helped tremendously. So, what should we think about in terms of, this upcoming summer WiCCED internship program? I think it's very important. I mean, the COVID-19 was unusual, but believe it or not, there are going to be disruptions in future work. And I think if students are not trained to think about that, I think they will miss out. And I think that's something that we need to think about. And I suspect, preparing them in things like data science, because we found that, data science kept us going. We were able, so typically in the summer, through the Delaware Embry, through Delaware EdScore, and through the NASA program, and through the NOAA program that we have, we normally have about 23 to 25 summer internships. This year we had 17. And so, it was not much of a drop off, but we were able to do that because a lot of the internships, were involved data science. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. I mean, that's a skill that is highly needed. But very important to realize is that, these interns, a lot of the interns need to be trained in communication. And that's why the SIS program is very important here. Because in the SIS program, we train the incoming freshmen about the importance of scientific communication. And the importance, that in order to work together, together you have to collaborate. And that is very important. And of course, if we can help the students as freshmen, we can be sustainable, and that's important to us. Well, what has happened to Wesley College? I'm sure you've seen the news, right? Delaware State is going to acquire the college. So what's going to happen, we don't know yet. Um, but the goal is, and if one looks at both institutions, Delaware State is ranked third among the public HBCUs, and Wesley is known for moving the needle in terms of social mobility of its students. And I believe, in my opinion anyway, I think this could be a powerful combination. The key here is, how is it going to be done? And, everything is not set in stone, so we don't know what's going to happen to the campus. Right now, we are going through Middle States. Middle States is the accrediting body for both institutions. And Middle States has given us some tasks to do to make sure that the students don't lose out during this acquisition. And that's what is happening right now. But there is an outside consultant involved, and they are studying, what would be the best benefit to both institutions. So we'll leave it at that, and I'll take any questions or comments.
People, don't be shy.
I have a question, Dr. D'Souza.
Yes.
With your surveys for the faculty, because I know you looked at mental health for students, did you ask about mental
Malcolm, I
health?
think you've overwhelmed
for
them
the
with
staff?
your competency here. You've got such a comprehensive knowledge about what is happening and what is occurring with your students and our students that are part of the whole Project WiCCED. That's phenomenal. I would note to folks that the experience that people in Project WiCCED's internships was noteworthy from the National Science Foundation's perspective. They actually saw the external review that we had of the programs. That would include not only Wesley and Delaware State, Del Tech, and UD, but that the students reported that, yeah, it was not a great experience, but it's often better than other things that had happened before. And so that has become a national model that NSF is actually interested in highlighting, and was very interested in knowing about what Wesley and throughout the network is doing. So again, it's a difficult time. And I think part of it is this discovery of what is happening with students and how we can go forward and make the students' lives meaningful. So I think someone was about ready to answer a question, and I may have cut him off. So sorry about that.
That was Lily now.
I'll let that question go, and then if there's another, I'll have another question for Malcolm if needed.
Go ahead, Lily.
Hi, I was just curious if you also looked at mental health for the faculty as well, just because I know it's such a big thing to transition online and so much stress for teachers, both and students.
Yes, we did. And maybe, since the students are here, we'll put them on the spot and say, do you want to answer? Do you remember? Lindsay was the one that did most of the mental health. Lindsay, do you remember? Are you still there?
So I can answer for Lindsay.
Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat?
So she was asking, Lily was asking, what about the faculty? What did they say about mental health?
So based on what we found from the faculty, they didn't struggle with mental health as much as the students did.
Correct.
It seemed they more struggled with family issues.
So Lindsay, the audio is not correct. So I can answer. Okay, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer that. So Lindsay was actually responsible for the students. Our other student, Andrew Shepard, was responsible for the faculty. We didn't notice a large mental health problem in the faculty. That could have just been that they didn't want to disclose that to students. And that's kind of my suspected reason, because it is such a private thing to talk about. But I would assume that it did happen. I mean, everybody was.
But I suspect, yeah, I suspect for the faculty it was more work, home balance that they had to create, especially for those, I think, and I noticed that, the ones that had younger kids, I think that was more of an issue.
Yeah, that was definitely very interesting. It just so happened that our two of our.
Katie, we lost you.
It was just based on gender that they were kind of having balance problem.
Katie, there's an audio issue, but anyway.
It's Amy. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen. That could be part of the problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I've stopped sharing my screen, but Katie, I can't hear you.
Katie, we get you for a couple seconds and then you leave. So probably best to have Dr. D'Souza just continue there. We just keep losing.
Yeah, so I think, for the faculty point of view, it was just a home-life balance issue. So, that was where the major issues were. Anything else? Lily, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Malcolm, do you have a sense as, you've had a different experience by going more in person and so forth. And, as we see COVID situations getting worse again, and if it rises dramatically bad, I mean, we don't know, obviously, but, as we think about this, I mean, what's your experience in terms of advising people whether they should, push to keep on in stuff, because clearly that seems to be so important for us from a personal connection. Or will we get better at this remote world and somehow be able to find meaning in that? I don't know. I mean, you've been straddling both lines. The University of Delaware, we've just been offline. So.
So, in my opinion, I think, I do think students are missing out, especially in the STEM areas, from the hands-on lab experience. Because, and, I'll give you the example just of organic chemistry. I mean, I noticed that I don't teach organic lab, but just in talking in class during lecture, I mean, you say something and they have no clue because they did the lab virtually. When you do things with your own hands in lab, it's a completely different experience than when you watch a video clip of somebody else doing the lab. And I think that's what is missing, because organic is all hands-on. I mean, when I used to teach the lab, I like to blow things up. And that's why I was told, hey, no longer invited in the lab. You're not safe. but that's where science, comes from. For me, science is doing stuff. You do the stuff and you see it. Okay. You take something, blow it up. Okay, that's what happened. I won't do it again. But, so I think that's what's, a virtual experience. I mean, it's, you see it because, I mean, if you could see it in 3D, maybe that would matter. But just show, just these video clips, or I mean, some, like I know in microbiology, Kevin Schumann now is going to start these, I guess you get these kits that could be sent home, and the students could do that. But the students didn't see the connection. I mean, they didn't get the connection. So the in-lab experience definitely is needs to happen. I mean, that's very important.
Malcolm, I was struck when I was looking at your slide there about, I think you had highlighted one of the slides about the handouts or something, how helpful they were. And you
Mhm.
said it's before and after, big shift, and
Correct. Yeah.
how much less helpful they were.
Correct.
But the other thing I saw in that slide was previously, was it like almost half of them said they were very helpful.
Yeah.
And after, no one said they were
Yeah.
very helpful.
Correct.
Right? I mean, it
Correct.
wasn't only like did the people saying they were not helpful go up some, but the dramatic shift in the
Mhm.
people who found them very helpful to basically no one saying they were very helpful was a really big shift.
And also at Wesley, the type of courses, and again, it's all because, I have to say, it's all because of WiCCED and Hillsbury. We have project-based courses. So the lab experiences are project-based. So the students work together, they collaborate in lab. In an online format, to do the same thing is very difficult, right? Because access is different. A lot of our students, we found, didn't have very good internet access. I mean, the school had to provide that, right? A student did not have space, a private space at home, you know, to do schoolwork. Some of the students have young kids. So all those have to be taken into consideration. And for our I think for our population, I believe an in-person experience is much, much better. I mean, you know, and so far, knock on wood, I mean, people follow the rules, and people and the college has provided um, all sorts of stuff to be safe. And so far, like I said, we've kept it under control. So knock on wood.
Malcolm, this is Jeanette. I have
Yeah.
just a quick question as you're wrapping up. Thank you for this nice talk and for the hard work you guys are all doing. As you think about what ways that Project WiCCED going forward, let's say over the next year or so, are there any new directions or adjustments or things that you think would make sense for us, given what you've learned from the last 6 months?
I think, one of the things, I would like to see both, on Project WiCCED and, even on the Delaware Inbridge side is, I think because the students missed out on the lab components of their courses. Maybe we need to get some of these instrument cores, to have some, because, normally people, have hands-on experience on spectroscopy. That's all gone, right? And they've missed out. Well, so they've progressed on to the next course, but they don't have the experience on these instruments. So I mean, that's something would be very, very helpful. So I think, if we run a program like in some sort of an instrumentation program or a hands-on lab experience, I think would be very helpful in my opinion, rather than just have them go and do a project. Because a hands-on experience, at least for me, a hands-on experience, can't compete with a virtual experience.
Great, we should talk more.
Hey, this is Sigrid Smith. I'm a faculty member at Dell State.
Okay.
I was curious for your STEM students who didn't come back this semester. Have you
Yeah.
guys done exit surveys or gotten any sense so far of whether these students are just taking the semester off or are potentially lost in terms of unable to complete their degree potentially?
So I don't think the school has done any exit surveys, and but in my role in talking to some of these students, I mean, these students are right now, at least what I have found, are highly stressed. And the stress is mainly because of the financial reasons. And so they are not even thinking about their future career goals. You see where I'm going? So they haven't thought that far ahead. So, our plan is to give them some time, maybe till the end of this semester, and then maybe we'll reach out to them again and say, hey, has your situation changed? And since Wesley now is partnering with Delaware State, and because the tuition is being reset to DSU's tuition, which is considerably lower, is that something that they're going to think about? So that's our plan. But right now, our feeling is that the student, is really not in that thinking mode of thinking about their next steps. They're just thinking about survival, to be honest, at this point. Okay.
All right. Well, we're coming to the noon hour, so I think we will wrap that up at this point. Again, we thank people for being on today's seminar series, and most importantly, thank Dr. Malcolm D'Souza for his excellent talk today and his commitment to his students. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Katie, for putting it all together. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.